right away. So welcome to World Wildlife Day. Thank you so much for having us. I would like to say that we are joining here at St. Timothy's School, who's very graciously decided to host us for the day. Maybe, actually, I can give you guys a quick little shot of the class here so we can see them all on the screen. Our friends can see you. You guys can give a quick wave to the camera over there if you'd like. Yep, awesome. And for World Wildlife Day, we're so lucky to be welcomed with our friends from Butterfly Wings and Wishes, who I'm going to welcome in just a moment. But before we get started, I would love to start with a land acknowledgement. So I'd like to acknowledge that I am joining from Amiskwaciwâskahikan, which is colonially known as Edmonton, Alberta, and we are found within Treaty 6 territory. Now, this land is their traditional traveling route and gathering place for many, many groups. Some of these include the Cree, the Saulteaux, the Blackfoot, the Métis, Dene, and the Nakota Sioux. And since we're also joining with all of our friends on our virtual platform, I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge all of the traditional lands that you are joining from across Turtle Island, but also around the world. So having respect for this land that gives us our food and our shelter and the air that we breathe is a really important step in that reconciliation process. So when we look at these different groups of Indigenous peoples around the world, they are doing tons of the work in conservation. So that means trying to keep these spaces protected and clean and thriving. So today for World Wildlife Day, I would really like us to kind of keep this appreciation in the front of our minds as we think about this work that's going on around the world. And we think a little bit about maybe some of the actions we can take to support that work here in Edmonton, but also across Canada and also around the world. Now, for World Wildlife Day, we do have, oh, actually, I guess I have my little timeline here first. As this timeline is on the screen, I want to give a couple reminders. So my first reminder is to all of our friends that are joining us virtually. I would love to see where you guys are joining from. So if your name is like a jumble of letters, or maybe your teacher's personal name, if you click the 3 dots next to your name, you can rename yourself. So you can let me know your school name, maybe the city you're joining from. So you can see our friends here, it says St. Timothy in Edmonton. That way it's a lot easier for me to see who you are as well. A lot of us are not allowed to turn our cameras on, but a lot of us are. So if you are allowed to turn your camera on, we would love to see your smiling faces during the live event. So please feel free to turn your cameras on. If anybody here in person or online has questions during the event, in person, you guys can raise your hands in real life. My virtual friends, there is a raise hand option that you can do in order to raise your hand and I can call on you. Also, type them in the chat so we have access to the chat as well. I will be sharing them with our guest speaker as they're presenting. That way we can get all of our questions. We might not get to all of them, depends how many we have, but we will do our absolute best. And lastly, if you are joining from YouTube, we can get your questions as well. So my colleague Sarah is joining as our tech support, and she will pass those YouTube questions along if you are joining from YouTube. Okay, lots of reminders. Let's get to the fun stuff. So first of all, welcome to all of these participating schools that are joining us live, as well as a handful of schools that are going to be joining us later on YouTube. Thank you for taking the time to learn about wildlife with us today. We're so happy to connect with you all. And in front of you, you should have an activity sheet. Now, if you do not have the activity sheet, not the end of the world, you can grab a blank piece of paper. What we would love to see during this live event is for you to draw me your favorite habitat. Now, this can be your home habitat where you're living right now. It can be your dream vacation habitat. It can be a habitat where you want to take a vacation one day. Whatever you would like, you guys can draw that habitat. Now, what are some things that you think you guys might see in a habitat? What kind of stuff do we think would be included in a habitat? Trees, for sure. What else? Yep. Animals. Yeah, for sure. Animals. What else? There's more than just trees and animals. What else? What might we see? Yeah, some leaves.
So another popular habitat that some animals that usually are in the desert, like they include going under rocks.
That's such a good one. So if you guys couldn't hear that, we might have a desert habitat that doesn't have as many trees and leaves, but might have things like rocks and dirt, right? We may have things like water. What about insects? or mushrooms or flowers, right? So when we're drawing our habitat, I want us really to think big picture about what's all going to be in that habitat. Yeah, there might be a lion, but there might be a lot of other things that that lion interacts with, okay? So you guys are welcome to start working on your art projects. At the end of the event, we are going to get you guys to share those on camera if you're able to. So if you guys are working on your art projects, we would love to see them at the end of the event, okay? All right. And that is it for my screen sharing. I would like to welcome now our friends from Butterfly Wings and Wishes. Jax, I'm going to let you talk a little bit about, you don't need me to introduce your amazing group. I would love for you to share us a little bit about what you guys do, and then we can go ahead and meet your friends.
Yeah, absolutely. So my name's Jax. I work for a company called Butterfly Wings and Wishes. And we do a lot of educational outreach like this, where we come in and we are able to bring in live animals to use to teach you guys, for you to have you interact with. And we have various types of programs where kids and adults can learn, as well as we're involved with different conservation groups. And we also do butterfly breeding and rearing kits so that kids in classrooms are able to do that as well, and raise butterflies and mantis of their own. But my job is a lot of animal care, and also doing presentations like this to students so that you're able to have experiences like this in a classroom, and we can bring that to you.
Awesome. All right. Take it away. You can show us your first friend.
Absolutely. So we are going to start with butterflies today. I'm actually just going to go over how we're going to interact with the animals today before we get started. So I just want to preface this with nothing that I have with me is scary or dangerous. All of my animal friends are nice. These animals work with kids in classrooms all of the time, and they're super friendly. So I'm going to come around with every single animal to every single student today. If you want to hold one of my animal friends, I'll just have you have 2 flat hands on your desk. And if you want to pet one of my animal friends, we can just use 1 gentle finger. We're going to be looking at reptiles and bugs and amphibians today. You do not have to touch anything if you don't want to. That is okay. You're welcome to touch things, but you don't have to. You can just say no, thank you when I come to you if you don't want to interact with something. And it's also okay to change your mind. If I come to you and I get closer to you and you decide that you don't want to touch something after all, you can still say, actually, no, thank you. And it's okay to change our mind the other way too. If you didn't think you wanted to hold an animal, but the person next to you held it and now you're feeling brave, it's okay for you to tell me that as well, and I'll come back to you, okay? Great. So today we are going to start talking about butterflies. So lots of us are familiar with butterflies and moths, right? Now, lots of people think that butterflies are really colorful and moths are kind of just gray or dull or white, right? Is that a pretty common thing for people to think? That's actually not always the case. There are lots of super, super colorful moths and super big moths. These here are all moths. They're not actually butterflies. So these are sunset and urania moths, and they're very colorful. There's lots of different really colorful species of moths. There's rosy moths and Luna moths and lots of different kinds of moths that are really colorful. Yeah, do you have a question? These are real, but they're not alive. These are something called specimens. Yeah. So these guys are actually passed away of natural causes, and we've collected them to be able to use as a teaching tool. And we'll talk a little bit more about that as we go on. I do have live butterflies here with me today, but first I'm just showing you some specimens. These guys are some butterflies of Alberta. So here where we live, these are some of the butterflies that we might see here, some native species. And these guys are some native moth species that we might see here in Alberta. And it's really important for us to protect these guys. These guys are excellent pollinators. Here I have some live painted lady butterflies. And I am going to bring a butterfly around. And if you want to, you can put out 1 little finger, just like this, and it can do a little tap dance on your finger while I tell you a bit more about them. And you can say no, thank you, absolutely. I'm going to bring these guys around. So pollinators are really important in our environment, and butterflies and moths are great pollinators. Some things that threaten butterfly species are things like habitat loss. So large monocultures like grass and lawns, where there's nothing for them to pollinate, no food to eat. So if we want to be protecting butterfly species, it's really great to look up what our local butterfly species are and planting things in our yard that they can eat and that they can pollinate. Lots of people think that monarch butterflies are native to here, but they're actually not. We don't have any native monarchs here. They might pass through at the end of August. But so lots of people will plant things like milkweed. But milkweed is actually not the best thing to plant because they're not actually a native species to here. So looking up things just like this. Can I turn your hand over? Here we go. Planting things that are going to help our native species thrive is a way that we can help conserve butterflies. Something else that threatens our butterfly species are pesticides. Even organic crops, no thank you, okay, that's okay, are sprayed with organic pesticides. So like something called BTK, which is a bacterial pesticide. No thank you, no thank you, okay. So even though it's organic, it is still a pesticide and it actually does kill caterpillars. So having diversity of plants, of native plants, and trying to minimize pesticide use is something that can help us protect these guys. Did you want to try? Yeah, his feet are kind of sticky like Velcro. We might note what his antenna look like. These guys actually have club-like antenna. And this is how we can tell butterflies apart from moths. We know that we can't tell them apart by whether or not they're colorful, but we can tell them apart by the shape of their antenna. Butterflies always, always, always have antennae that are shaped like this. And moths never have antennae that are shaped like this. Moths can have any other type of antenna. They can have stick straight antenna, or they can have curly antenna, or they can have feathery antenna, but they'll never have clubbed antenna. So that's the way that we can tell butterflies and moths apart, by looking at them. Now, butterflies, as we know, go through a life cycle. They go through something called metamorphosis. They start out as eggs, and as we can see here, these are some tiny butterfly eggs, and they are laid on a hollyhock leaf. So butterflies lay their eggs on leaves, and these particular types of butterflies, these painted lady butterflies, will lay them on hollyhock leaves. So this is a really great native plant to plant here where we live. So that butterflies have a place to reproduce. They're very bright blue. You can see they're tiny and they're very brightly colored. They're so, so small. And then out of these guys are going to hatch tiny little caterpillars. Why are they blue? That's a good question. They are naturally blue. I'm actually not sure the scientific process that makes them blue, but let's see butterfly eggs. You've seen these before? Yeah, we might see these outside. Did you want to see the eggs? Those are butterfly eggs.
so much.
There's a lot of them. Yeah, they lay lots and lots and lots of eggs.
Also, while we're going around and showing this to our students here, I just want to remind you guys, if you have more questions about the caterpillars or the butterflies, feel free to raise your hands. That's why we have an expert here. I'm not an expert, but I would love to hear your questions. And same with our Zoom friends. If you have questions, type them in the chat or raise your hand. We would love to answer those too.
So here I have some caterpillars. So out of those eggs, hatch some caterpillars. And they start out as eggs, become caterpillars, and then butterflies actually spin something called a chrysalis. They use their own body to do this. Butterflies do not spin cocoons. Moths are actually the ones that spin cocoons, and butterflies spin chrysalis. Here, I have an unhatched chrysalis. So in here is a caterpillar changing into a butterfly. And here, I have some that have already hatched. So these guys are some empty butterfly chrysalis. So the butterflies have already hatched out of these ones and flown away. I'm going to bring these around. We're not going to touch the chrysalis just because they're very delicate right now, but we can touch the moth cocoons. So these are moth cocoons. Moths will use different things to make their cocoons, whereas butterflies will spin their chrysalis from their own body. They might use leaves, things from nature, to make the cocoons. And some moths will spin silk to make their cocoons. Do you all know what silk is? It's like a fabric. It's very smooth and shiny, and sometimes our clothes are made out of it, or pillowcases or things like that, or things for hair. And they actually come from moth caterpillars, from a silk moth. So this cocoon was made from a silk moth. Do you have a question? You had a pet moth? That's really cool. Do you have a question? Yeah.
It was like when it was like the light on, it was like downstairs.
Yes, if anybody on the Zoom did not hear that, this is
Absolutely.
a common thing. So she said it was nighttime, but there was a light on and she found a moth buzzing around the light. Have we ever seen that in our houses before too? I see some head nods.
Yeah, moths are definitely attracted to lights when it's dark. I'm going to pass these around. You guys can touch them and pass them on to the person next to you if you'd like to. And then I'm going to come around and show you that, guys, these chrysalis. It's not blood. What a great question. This is actually not blood. It looks like blood because it's red. This is something called meconium. And meconium is something that is inside the chrysalis while the butterfly is hatching. It's kind of like a butterfly's first poop, actually, is what it's more like. Everybody poops. So I'll bring these around. These ones we're just going to look at just because they're super delicate. We can see that guy's alive in there. See how he's wiggling? Give him a little squish. You can see kind of gold flecks there. So the caterpillars have spun this. And then they've hatched out of these ones. These are chrysalis. So this one is a live chrysalis. Inside there, a caterpillar is changing into a butterfly. You can see the shiny gold bits. And he's still alive. And these ones are empty because the butterflies have already hatched and come out of them. These are the painted lady butterflies that we got to feel with our fingers.
Which one's alive?
This one.
That one?
Yeah, see it's wiggling? See, that one's alive. He's pretty silly looking, isn't he? Just wiggling away there.
So cool.
It's very cool. Can we see the difference between these and the cocoons?
So as these are just finishing their round, I do have a question that came through on the chat.
Absolutely.
Wondering if we find chrysalises in the wild, are we allowed to take the branches and bring them inside, or do we leave them where they are?
We should absolutely never take wildlife inside into our home. Yeah, we want to leave it where it is. And it's a problem when we re-release wildlife as well. It's actually illegal to do so. It's illegal here in Alberta to take wildlife home and re-release it. And we'll talk a little bit about that more with when looking at our amphibians here. I think we're going to start with another bug. So this guy is another type of bug. And this type of bug doesn't live here where we live. This guy is a Madagascar hissing cockroach. So this guy comes from Madagascar. And I'm going to bring him out. And if we're super quiet, he might hiss for us. Now, these guys hiss because they're trying to sound scary. They don't bite, they don't sting, they're not venomous, they don't have a lot of ways to protect themselves. So they do something called mimicry. They're trying to sound like a snake. They're trying to sound scarier than they are so that maybe they can protect themselves from being eaten. So if we're super quiet when I pull him out, he might hiss, if we're lucky. They actually hiss by pushing air out of holes in the back of their body. They're not hissing with vocal cords like we would. Oh, he did hiss. So I'm going to bring him around. So cockroaches are really fascinating creatures. There's 4,400 different species of cockroach in the world. Only 30 live amongst humans, and only 4 are considered a pest. The ones that are considered a pest because they're garbage eaters. So they actually don't carry their own harmful germs or anything like that, but they do spread human germs around. They might climb across your garbage and then climb across your toothbrush. But that's not this kind of cockroach. This kind of cockroach likes to eat tropical fruit. His favorite food is bananas. So this is not a garbage eating cockroach. If you want to, you can pet him or you can hold him. Can you try holding him?
Yeah.
Okay.
Does this one nibble?
Sorry?
So this one nibbles.
He does not. Well, he'll nibble food, but he won't nibble you.
Some just nibble.
We can see that he has a face that kind of looks like an ant or a grasshopper. Now, the garbage-eating kind of cockroach, which isn't this kind of cockroach, are actually really helpful in our world. We have now, as humans, discovered that things like being able to eat garbage and plastic is really helpful for getting rid of waste in our world. So there's facilities in China where they're utilizing garbage-eating cockroaches to get rid of human waste, and they can eat up to 25 tons of human garbage every single day.
Whoa.
Now, cockroaches are considered an invasive species, meaning that they can come in and they can make lots and lots of babies that can kind of take over our environment in a way that we don't want them to. So this type of cockroach here, we're not actually allowed to keep as a pet or anything like that in case it were to get out and alter our environment by invading our ecosystems. Though in other places in the world, this type of cockroach is commonly a first pet for children. These guys are really friendly social animals. They live in colonies, sometimes hundreds, thousands, and they do things like group decision making. So if enough of the colony makes a decision, all of the cockroaches will do that same thing. Even if it's not a very smart idea, they'll all do it because they really value their their colonies and their family groups. You can see that this guy has 2 horns on his back. That's because this guy's a male. When cockroaches are used to compost, to get rid of waste, that is called blatticomposting. Yeah, he might go a little faster if we tap him on the back, just because you would probably go a little faster if someone tapped you on the back as well.
I don't want to.
Yeah, you can totally pet him.
Oh, that's gross.
Yeah, absolutely. He's hard. He's got a pretty hard exoskeleton. Yeah, absolutely. You can totally change your mind. Yeah, you can.
I literally touched him. He's not that bad.
No, he's really friendly. Do you want to look? You want me to stay over here? Okay, that's okay too. Well, because, yeah, these species don't live here. We wouldn't have seen these here where we live. This guy's from Madagascar. How do we get him? We actually have a colony of our own. No?
Guys, it's not too late to add some cockroaches to your artwork.
All right, we'll say bye, cockroach. Sorry, bud. Oh, did I miss somebody? Oh, I am so sorry. I will come back to you.
Go to her first.
All right, I can go to you first.
Kennedy, you just say no, thank you if you don't want to. You don't have to.
How does he feel?
Good.
Good?
Feel hard.
Can I pet him now?
Absolutely. He's kind of like a hamster almost, the way he moves across hands. Want to try? You were very brave. Good job. You want to give him a pet?
And add a fear.
Okay, all done. Good job. Very brave. Did you guys try? No? Do you want to? Did you want to give it a try? No? You see his antenna wiggling back and forth? He's learning about the world around him too. So speaking of invasive species, this one you've probably seen here before, but I bet you didn't know it's actually an invasive species. These guys are not native to here. I'm gonna make a little bit of a mess over here for a second. There we go. These guys are red wriggler worms. So here where we live in Amiskitchi-Waskagon, we probably have all seen these guys, right? We're just gonna look at these ones. Yeah, we're not gonna touch these guys. We've probably in our lifetime touched a worm.
I have one.
So these guys are composters. They're great composters. People will sometimes have compost bins to help get rid of food scraps. And it isn't actually illegal to re-release these guys. So lots of people will put them in their gardens and things like that. But we have no native worm species. Every worm you've ever seen is not a native species. It is an invasive species. We do not have native worms in Canada.
So every worm you see is not supposed to be here.
Yeah.
Wow.
Absolutely. That's right. They don't come from here. They were brought over from Europe.
He's not that scary.
So we have
No.
a question here about worms. If they're
Absolutely.
invasive species, does that mean that they're bad for our gardens?
No, they actually do compost and they aerate our soil, which is really nice. But they're pretty prolific and we don't want them to overpopulate, right?
Yeah, so just because something's invasive does not necessarily mean that it's bad for everything. I think lots of us probably have. Actually, do any of us have gardens at home? Oh, so we got probably lots of red wrigglers out there in your
What's
guys'
happening?
garden.
There's a
Oh,
bug.
that's a springtail.
Oh, did you just smush it?
I'm not trying to smush it. I'm trying to pick him up, but it's really hard because he's really little. There we go.
I don't know if any of your pictures have an underground section in them, but
Oh, that would be a cool thing to draw. Yeah. So we looked at worms that do live here but are not actually a native species, which is really interesting. But I do have a native species here that is an amphibian. So these guys do live here where we live. We might see them in a pond or a marsh. They like to live in wetlands. So does anyone know the difference between a reptile and an amphibian? No. Okay. So a reptile is usually a dry animal, and an amphibian is usually a wet animal, but not always. So things like frogs are amphibians, things like lizards and snakes are reptiles. Both are cold-blooded animals. But the real difference is actually that amphibians metamorphose. They go through metamorphosis, just like a butterfly does, right? So it starts out as a caterpillar, and then it makes a chrysalis, and then it turns into a butterfly. Amphibians do this too. For example, a frog will start out as an egg, and it will turn into a tadpole, and then it will grow legs, and it will lose its tail, and it'll become a fully adult frog. So only amphibians do this. Reptiles don't do this. Reptiles just start out the same way they're going to look as an adult, and then they get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And so that's how we can really truly tell the difference between a reptile and an amphibian. I'm going to pass this around, and you guys can take a look at it. I'm going to bring out an amphibian friend for us to look at. So my amphibian friend that I have here, his name is Pickle.
Did you hear that?
And Pickle is a tiger salamander.
Is this just a looking one?
No, we can touch him. However, if we want to touch Pickle, we have to have wet hands. Pickle is a wet animal, and he needs to have wet hands for touching him. So this is just water that I've brought. And if you want to touch Pickle, I'll just have you spray. I'll just spray your hands as I come around.
Oh, yeah.
Sure, that would be great. Yep. Thank you. And we can pet Pickle, or we can have two flat pancake hands and hold Pickle if we want to. Yeah.
Is he a lizard?
He's not a lizard. He's an amphibian. So lizards are actually reptiles. He has a lizard-shaped body. That's a really good question. He looks a lot like a lizard. Some people say he kind of looks like a lizard frog. So he kind of feels like if you were to be in the bathtub for a super long time and your fingers were to get kind of wrinkly and turny, that's kind of what he feels like. So
Can we get a photo of his face for our friends online? Yeah.
he's got a very cute little face. He is. Yeah. Salamanders are fascinating creatures. They live here in our wetlands.
You have to spray your hands first. Okay, so put your hands up, honey.
And salamanders have an amazing superpower. These guys are able to do something called regeneration. So they're able to lose any part of their body and regrow it, as long as an injury doesn't kill them. Meaning they could lose half their brain. Can you just spray my salamander, please? Thank you. They could lose half their brain and still live and regrow half their brain. Did you want to give her a pet or a hold?
You want me to spray your? It's not a lizard. It's a salamander.
It's a salamander. Yeah.
Cool.
We can pet him on his body. If we touch his sides, he might swing his hips back and forth, kind of like Elvis. I will just ask that we not poke him in the face because he doesn't like that. So we can pet his back or his tail, just not on his head. You can hold him, yeah, if you want to have wet hands. Salamanders are able to lay their eggs underwater, and the eggs will actually stay viable until the conditions are right for them to hatch. They can stay underwater for years.
Wow.
And yes, please. Thank you so much. And so if the water is not the right acidity or anything like that, the eggs won't hatch. They'll wait until it is the right environment for them to do so.
That's good. Good job, Kennedy. It's very nice. Cool. Would you like to? Okay.
So I had a question come through about the losing a limb thing. So
Absolutely.
the question is, you said that the salamander can lose an arm or a leg and grow it back. Is there any other species in Canada that can lose limbs and grow them back?
I'm actually not sure about that.
I don't know if I've heard of any
I don't
myself.
think I have ever heard of one personally that can do that.
So salamanders are very special, guys.
They are
It's
very
like
special.
superpower.
Geckos are able to lose their tails and grow them back. So our friends in different places, you might have geckos where you live. And geckos are a reptile, and they're able to lose their tail and grow it back, but only their tail. I've never heard of anything else that's able to lose any part of its body and regrow it.
These are great questions, guys. Keep them coming. You can type them to me in the chat, or you can type them to everyone if that works too. And don't forget, for my friends here in person, if you guys have questions about any of the animals, raise your hand.
So these guys are actually endangered. They're really cute. But if we find them, we should absolutely never, ever take them home. It is illegal to have wild animals and re-release them. These guys will live 15 to 20 years.
Wow.
We definitely don't want to take them home.
If you like slime.
It's particularly important with things like frogs that we don't do that. Can I have you tuck your chair in a little bit, please? Thank you. The reason being that humans actually carry two different viruses. A virus and a fungi on our skin that nice and flat that are actually really harmful to amphibians. So if we bring home a frog, or if we bring home tadpoles and raise them and then re-release those frogs, they actually have less than 0 survival rate. Meaning that not only will the frog that you brought home and re-released not survive, it'll kill about 70% of the native population, because we naturally carry those things on us that are extremely harmful to the ecosystem. So it's really important that we never want to do that. And it's illegal. No? Okay. We definitely want to protect these guys. So one of the ways we can protect them is by leaving them in their home. But another thing that threatens them is habitat loss and pollution.
The most popular salamander.
Okay, and as we're finishing this last circle, I know we still have a couple critters we're going to meet. We have about 10 more minutes left with our friends on Zoom.
Okay, great.
So any of our schools that are joining us on Zoom, as well as you guys here, now is your chance to do those last additions to your art pieces. So you guys have a few more minutes while we're finishing up with the salamander with Pickle. To finish up some last pieces on your art. And then I would love to see some of them on camera. So if any of my schools on camera would like to share some of their art, you are welcome to raise your hand and we will spotlight you, and your kiddos can come to the camera and show us their art. As well as my friends in here, whoever's sitting quietly and has a nice art piece in front of them, I might call on you to come share them with our friends on camera in a couple of minutes.
He's very wiggly and very smooth, yeah. So one of the things that threatens these guys' habitat is watershed pollution. So things like runoff from oil and gas industry, from mining. So there are organizations that we can get involved with to protect the habitats of these guys. Because obviously they're really cool and really great little animals that we want to keep thriving. Did everybody who wanted to touch Pickle get a chance to do so?
I think so.
Great.
So cool.
Yeah, you're so welcome. Oops. So one of the reptiles that we have here in Amiskwaciwâskahikan is a garter snake. So this guy is a reptile, not an amphibian. So sorry? I think the snake would prefer it, but thank you. So snakes, unlike amphibians, shed their skin. Actually, some amphibians shed their skin. Sorry, I take that back. So all reptiles though shed their skin. Snakes are the only reptiles that do not eat their shed skin. So when it's something like a gecko sheds its skin, it eats its skin. Whereas snakes are the only reptile that leave them behind because they don't go through metamorphosis. They just get bigger and bigger and bigger and stay the same. And so their skin gets kind of tight and doesn't really like fit them properly, and they need bigger skin. So they grow new skin underneath that fits them, and then they leave this behind. This is kind of like old snake laundry that I have here. Snake skin is really papery and dry. Snakes are shiny, not slimy. They're dry animals. They're cold-blooded animals. I'm going to pass this around. You can touch it and then pass it to your friend while I keep talking about snakes and bring out a friend. Yeah.
So, at my grandma's house, I used to have a gardener snake, and it would like wrap around my neck, and then it would just like make hissing noises and all of my ears. And it would just run around.
That's so interesting.
I would like to share too for any of our friends on Zoom. If I don't know how far he was from the mic, but our friend over here had a garter snake, or your grandmother had a garter snake that used to wrap around them and make hissing noises at them.
That's so interesting.
That's very cool.
So garter snakes are the only type of snake that we have in Amiskwaciuskayagam. Here in Edmonton and the surrounding area. We do not have any venomous snakes here where we live. Friends who live in other places that are joining us, you might have venomous snakes where you live, but we do not have any here where we live. You would have to drive really, really far in a car, about 6 hours, to Dinosaur Provincial Park to find the only venomous snake in Alberta, which is a rattlesnake. This guy is albino. So if you saw a garter snake here, it would not look like this, even though this is a garter snake. It would look green and black, probably green and black with stripes. But this one, whose name is Banana Nut Muffin, is albino, and that's why she looks like this. You can see that she is lacking color. That's also why her eyes are red. Her eyes are actually clear. What we're seeing is the blood vessels behind her eyes because she doesn't have any pigment. So any snakes that we see here out in the wild are a safe snake, and we should leave them where they are. I'm going to bring her around and we can touch her or hold her. Just 1 second. Do you want to try? Great. And they're not dangerous, so we can just leave them where they are. We don't want to take them out of their home. We don't want to try and pick them up, but we definitely don't want to hurt them or kill them. They're super helpful for our environment. And they're not at all dangerous. They eat rodents, they eat mice. So they keep our rodent population down, which can be harmful to us and our belongings and our homes. So that's something we really want. Do you have a question?
I actually know how a snake's vision looks like.
That's really cool.
So the outlines of things look. So if the snake is looking at Arjan, he kind of has like a white outline around it.
That's so interesting.
Now, since we only have a couple minutes left with our Zoom friends, I would like to call now. We have to do this very calmly and quietly so that we don't disturb the snake. But if you have already had a chance to pet the snake and you would love to share some of your art, what you're going to do is you're going to come and make a lineup right here beside me with your art, and we'll take turns sharing them on camera as the rest of the class takes a look at the snake. So once you've touched the snake, you can bring your art over here and we'll share them on screen. As well as St. Teresa, if you guys have art that you would like to share, feel free to come up on screen and you can share your art as well. Perfect. Okay, so here's our camera here, so you can hold it up to the camera.
That's so weird. Yeah, he's pretty bumpy on top.
Yeah, it looks
really
great.
smooth
And
underneath.
can you tell
The
me
scales
your name?
underneath are more smooth
Arjan.
to help him climb over rocks.
We
might notice that he's sticking his tongue out.
calling you.
He's actually smelling.
Thank you
Snakes
very
smell with
much.
their tongues, not their noses.
What's your name?
Julia.
Okay, what did you draw?
So basically,
We
it's
just
like
won't
a
pet
little
his head
place.
because he doesn't
It's
like that.
basically like
But you can
outside
touch him
with,
anywhere
like,
else.
Bees and butterflies.
You know, that actually looks a lot like where we are here. Did you draw your home habitat?
Oh yeah.
You want to touch his
Awesome.
tail,
Thank
but
you
you
very
don't
much.
want his head near you?
Support the pollinators, right? Yeah. Awesome. Okay, do we have anyone else that would like to share their art on screen?
Doesn't feel bad.
What is your name?
My name's Kennedy.
Hey, let's go
So snakes are not
And what did you
inherently
draw?
vicious or evil
I
creatures.
just
They're actually
drawed,
quite kind
a joke called
creatures,
Ketchup and
especially the ones
Nugget,
that live here where we
and
live.
Also, I drawed my
And
place that is in my
80% of snake
backyard.
bites in the wild happen on the hands. Why might that be, do we think?
St. Teresa was sharing
Okay.
some beautiful
Why do you think
photos on their screen.
That's
as
right,
well.
because they're trying to pick it up. And to a wild snake, we are actually very scary. We're like a giant predator. They think we're going to eat them or hurt them. So they're just trying to protect themselves.
I'm seeing lots of great art from our friends over here at St. Teresa. You guys can probably see them on the screen here too. I see some amphibians, some insects. There's lots of good stuff popping up. Okay, let's go ahead and, I mean, I would like you to, but you can show us what you have so far. All right, let us know what your name is.
My name's Savannah, and I drawed
Does
a
it?
like birds,
feel
a
her
sun,
slithering
and
over
a
your
tree,
hands.
and the snake is going to say hi to the worm.
She's very pretty.
Amazing. What kind
Yeah,
of snake is it?
absolutely. You want to ask her that.
Just like the one we met today. Thank you very much. It's awesome.
I'm also sharing some great art coming out of St.
you
Angela
can
that
hold
they're
it.
showing with us.
I'm just gonna hold on to
I
this
see
for a
my
minute.
dream habitat from St. Angela. That's amazing. Some butterflies you guys see on the screen. We've got some great
She's hiding under
pollinators here
your,
from St.
under your
Angela.
mouth there.
And I did just have a question that I think might be a question a few of you have had. Do we need to color them? You don't have to color them. However, I will say I
Thanks for
do
letting me know
like
what
a
you need.
colorful
Do you wanna
picture.
try?
So if you have time to color them, we would love to see it. Look at this one. We've got butterflies, we've got eggs, we've got, I think maybe we've got a cow down there.
She's pretty cool.
That one's very
Make
beautiful
her
and
own body.
colorful. Ooh, a pyramid. I think we might have a desert one here.
That's
Ooh, we have a question back here.
What great work.
Where do we have a question? Sorry.
There was a hand in the back row over
Did
here.
someone have a question?
Oh, and someone's
what's the
drawn some babies. Everyone likes babies.
So they
Okay, we
look
had a
kinda
question.
gray. That's a great question. They're actually, what you're seeing is his blood vessels underneath his skin. So his skin is white because, again, this snake is albino, and that means he doesn't make pigment in his skin like other snakes would. So he's not black or green. So we're actually seeing through that white skin, and it makes it look gray or purple because we see his blood vessels underneath.
That was a great question.
That was an
Thank you very
excellent
much.
question, yeah.
I see we have another student here with me that would like to share their art. Would you like to let us know your name first?
Yeah, you
Hello,
can.
my name is Bethlehem. This is my house.
Yeah, it's wrapping up around herself.
Beautiful. And do you have some plants or animals you wanted to draw around your house?
Okay.
What do you think you're going to add?
Dog.
Nice. I love dogs.
Pizza.
It's a great idea. Thank you very much. Okay. Our friends at St. Teresa or St. Angela, you guys have more you'd like to share? We have a little bit more time. I see some more coming up to the screen here. Look at this butterfly, you guys. That's very cute.
Oh, it's.
Yeah, they're definitely shiny, not slimy. They're smooth and dry animals. You can touch his neck, just maybe not her head. It'll be scary for her. She doesn't see. so
All
she
right,
can't
last
see,
call
and,
before I
when
do
you
my
touch
last
her,
couple reminders
scares
of
her.
our artists. Beautiful. You know, I have to
Yeah,
say, I
absolutely.
like the amount of pollinators I'm seeing. I'm all for pollinators, right? Butterflies are great pollinators. Some dragonflies, some trees.
Yeah, absolutely.
Beautiful. Is that, I think that
I'll
one
do
might be a
these
snake.
stems and then I'll come back. Yeah.
Could be a caterpillar. Hard for me to tell.
Did you say you wanted to hold her?
Wow, you guys got really full habitats. That's
So two flat hands
awesome.
just down on the desk. There we go.
Ooh, someone's driven the whole life cycle here of the eggs and the chrysalis.
Amazing. You guys could be making some art for our friends at Butterfly Wings and Wishes to
You
teach
wanna try?
other schools about these life cycles. Okay, We are at 150. Now, our friends that are joining us online, we like to let them go at the 45-minute mark. Our friends in person, we do have a little bit of wrap up we're going to do in just a minute. But for all of my friends online, I just wanted to give you guys all a quick reminder before I let you go. If you liked this event and you want to do more events with us, we have another great event coming up in a few weeks for our older classes for World Autism Awareness Day. So if you want to learn about how to make your classrooms more inclusive for people who maybe have a little bit of a different or an interesting brain within your classroom, this will be a very cool event for you guys to join. And our friends at Green Learning wanted you guys all to know about these amazing challenges where you could win up to $1,000. Yeah, so there's a few different ones on energy, on flooding, on circular economy. So you just have to go to greenlearning.ca/challenges, teachers, and see if you can apply for one of these free challenges. You get free money for your classroom to try to make impacts for our habitat. That's all of the reminders I had for you. So we are going to leave the Zoom room open. You are welcome to stay, but I know a lot of us have to get back to class. So we're going to close off our YouTube now. We're going to say goodbye to our friends online. So maybe if we could get a quick wave from our classroom here. Thank you very much for joining us. We loved having you all here. And yeah, if you have 10 more minutes, you're welcome to stay and ask a few more questions. But thank you so much for joining us for World Wildlife Day. Okay, and you could go ahead and bring out, do you have one more you wanted to show?
Yeah, I definitely do.
We'll do our last couple here because you guys get a couple extra minutes.
Wonderful, thank you.
We have one more, you guys.